of us actually started engaging with COVID and the pandemic in the form of actually medical help, food solidarity and things like that. We are trying to move on. Our, absolutely, emboldened and extremely, non-transparent governance and people in the government are telling us that we successfully fought a pandemic. Really? Did we successfully fight a pandemic? Is that the story of people of India? Is that why that, despite WHO saying that our excess deaths in India is about 4.7 million people during the pandemic time, the government of India is still sitting on a figure of 4.8 lakhs, 1/10 of the figure that WHO is telling us.
So the first report, titled Shambolic Governance, Unfiltered Loot, we look at 3 institutions: Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Delhi Disaster Management Act, and ICMR, which falls under the union. Now, what is interesting is that all the 3 institutions, there were about 454 notifications overall, but we see that there has been almost like null attention given to cost of treatment, grievance redressal and patient rights. Even if any attention has been given, they do not really address people's concern. Like for example, if you look at cost of treatment, there has been a capping that has put for 8 to 18,000 rupees. For the patient rights, we see that they have mentioned, which in itself is a violation of patient right, that only bona fide residents can get admission. We very well know who are the people of Delhi residents. The most of the people here are informal labor force, our migrant population, and clearly this notification says that there has been no consideration for these people. When we look at all these data together and we combine it, we also see that there is this whole casteist country and a Brahminical setup that is going on. When you take away the means of affordability, like for example, when you do not have enough access for people to even access treatment or health, by putting a cap, it actually kind of negates the whole purpose of who your citizens are. The second report, Perils of Pandemic, Untold Story from the Streets. These are basically the findings that we are talking about, or we are going to talk about, are from 3 public hearings that happened one in Jwalanagar, Kalkaji and Karol Bagh, all in Delhi, and there was a culmination of all these public hearings. We had 90 depositions, but again, to remind, the 90 might not seem like a very attractive number, but the stories and the kind of narratives that we get out is something similar to thousands and multiples and lakhs of people. About 56% of vendors were at least evicted once. We see that 95.6% of vendors' earnings were impacted, and among that, Dalits have faced the massive brunt, about 75% of reduction. We also see that the vendors who has been there for 16 to 20 years, the longest who have been in this occupation are the OBCs and Dalits. 57.8% of people needed medical treatment, and for that medical treatment, people had to rely, 61.5% had to rely on moneylenders or friends to borrow the money to ensure that they can do the medical treatment. While the lockdown was lifted and people could actually go back to business, even then, let us remind you that 56% of people were evicted, and also 44.44% of street vendors' goods were seized. I mean, their carts, the vegetables that they're selling. About 81% are in debt, and we are looking at least 22% of people who are still under our like in 1 lakh debt that we look at.
I also feel that in these situations when, pandemic or otherwise, it's important for people to have voice and visibility in the way things are. The government is after all only an elected representative of the people at large. It is not supposed to dictate things to the people, so to speak, or to even cover up what is going on. But what is happening today is there's a huge attempt to cover up. People would perhaps understand better if there was an acknowledgement that the government was also not able to get its act together, but wanted to hear suggestions and inputs from the people. Instead, the projection was that, oh, we know it all and we are doing the best, and we've even obtained victory, so to speak, over the pandemic, as if the pandemic is some kind of a war.
Our primary hope about having brought out these reports is that this will reach the hands of the people in multiple languages, and that people actually go back to understanding that an engagement in a democracy is not just about voting, but it is about your right to truth, accountability and justice. People cannot be taken for granted in a democracy, and that is increasingly what is happening now.